You've heard a lot about this free tuition conversation in Rhode Island. We're going to break it down with a key educator tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
And he is so much more than that, of course. The president of the University of Rhode Island, Dr. David Dooley, is my guest this evening. And we recorded the show just in case all heck breaks loose on Friday. We recorded the show on Wednesday of this week. It's a brand new program, but due to some scheduling issues, that's when we put this thing together for your viewing pleasure. A couple of qualifiers here. First of all, on Friday nights, for the most part, if you watch the show on Friday nights, you're used to the idea that I'm not going to the rundown camera and opining on the issues of the day because I don't know what they are. So that's okay. We have quality time to discuss, I think, a really important matter. Secondly, just a couple of qualifiers. I am a proud URI dad, and I can tell you that I've been bullish on the University of Rhode Island well before my student decided that she was going to attend there. My experiences as a family with the University of Rhode Island have been phenomenal. I don't say that because I love the one I'm with. I say it because it's just absolutely true, both on a big picture and even for those of you who are thinking, you know, it's kind of a big school. Is there any level of intimacy there for students? Well, we've learned that there is. And so I can't say enough good things about the University of Rhode Island, and for that matter, Rhode Island College, because I think they're probably both the best return on investment that you can find in the region for your tuition dollars. So none of the conversation we're going to have tonight is criticism about the University of Rhode Island. Secondly, as a small qualifier, and I mean small, I am on the part-time, and I mean very part-time payroll as the public address announcer at the URI basketball games. And so I say those things because I don't want you having it lingering in your head that I have some kind of a bias. Because of all of that, I can honestly tell you, the president and I disagree completely on this issue. And it's going, but we're going to have a good throwdown, you know, a good diplomatic throwdown on this, and I do it with a clear conscience, knowing that underneath is a foundation of real affection for the University of Rhode Island. All right, having said that, a couple of headlines here that are important to remind you of. Rhode Island governor makes the case for free college tuition plan. Of course, President Dooley has been semi on the stump, making a couple of appearances, including when the program was first broken down by the governor's administration, championing the concept. We have some rough audio. This was something I ran on the radio on WPRO weekdays 3 to 6 after I chased down the governor at one of her tour de jours around the state at local high schools marketing this. So this is actually radio audio as she describes the plan.
If you want to go to CCRI, it's on us. An associate's degree. You go full-time, you work as hard as you can, send us the bill. We got you covered. You get your associate's degree, you go get a good job. Or maybe transfer and get a 4-year degree. You want to go to URI or you want to go to Rhode Island College, the first 2 years, you got to figure out a way to pay for that. But the last 2 years are on us.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
It is.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to be back.
It's great to have you. I think there's so many things that are wrong with the execution of this plan, but the sell is really politically easy, seems to me. College is too expensive for too many people, and any kind of relief is going to be welcome, I think, by the marketplace out there. And I think that's a protection against what I think are the systemic problems with this thing. Having said that, you have the floor. Have a couple of minutes and tell me why 2 years at the University of Rhode Island, junior and senior year, beginning with the class of 2017, makes sense to you.
Let's start with, I think, the fundamental premise, which has been true since URI's founding. In fact, true since the creation of land-grant universities in America back in 1862. We're 125 years old, and throughout most of that 125 years, the University of Rhode Island well reflected the goal and, in fact, the purpose of the land-grant institution, which was to be affordable to everyone. They were created, we were created, to provide education for the common people of the United States and particularly of Rhode Island. Go back and look at the Morrill Act of 1862 and that's what you'll see. That was a rationale. We want to educate the average American person, not the wealthy, not the merchant class, not the business people, not the landowners only, but what they then called in the Morrill Act of 1862, the industrial class. So we've always intended to be affordable, and for most of our history we were. You go back and look at the history of tuition at the University of Rhode Island, and the most dramatic increases have occurred relatively recently. And that has made college, public higher education in every state, not just Rhode Island, but practically every state, more of an issue for families. Middle-class families, working-class families, affordability is a critical question. And what I like about the proposal that the governor brought forward is that it directly addresses that fundamental issue of affordability for very many Rhode Islanders. And we know that that's true.
Look, I haven't enjoyed writing the checks for my kids' tuition, but as I said at the top, I feel like I'm getting all the bang for my buck, all the return on investment I could possibly get. And comparably, and not to talk about family business here, but I will tell you that my daughter was a transfer where the tuition, even with some scholarship dough, was much higher in her freshman year elsewhere than it was at the University of Rhode Island. So it was almost like a raise when she came to the University of Rhode Island for me. I know it's different for a whole lot of people who come from different perspectives financially and the like. But really, the tuition expense at the University of Rhode Island is so much lower for the quality of education you get comparable at least to private institutions out there. And so it's not like, at least in this modern age, URI is priced out of the marketplace.
That's very true. In fact, we believe, and I think the data all show, that we're an exceptional value. The return on investment for a URI education is very high. And
you want to be an engineer, you want to be a pharmacist, in my kid's case, speech pathologist, I mean, these degrees are high level, in demand, hiring ratios are extremely high, all of that.
Absolutely true. We provide great value and a very, very high quality education for your money at URI. And there's a lot of data that support that. We know, comparing us to other public research universities from really Maryland north, that the University of Rhode Island is the most efficient in terms of the cost per credit hour of instruction than any of our peers.
So then why do we need to do this?
I think the rationale is that despite everything that we've been talking about being an accurate reflection of the value of a URI degree, it is still a challenge for a lot of Rhode Islanders to afford the $13,000, roughly speaking, tuition and mandatory fees at the University of Rhode Island. So I think it's approximately true, and my numbers may be a little bit a year or two old, but if you look at the FAFSA form, which as a parent you're very familiar with, the federal financial aid form.
You get enough zeros back, you know. It's just, sorry. Yeah. It's like, that was 3 hours of work, at least the first time. Say, nothing? Thanks. And a lot of you are doing that. It's not.
A lot of people do that and file it
and get nothing.
And get nothing. And a lot of people, you know, comes back, and for a very significant percentage of our students from Rhode Island, the expected family contribution doesn't even equal URI's tuition and fees. So they can't be expected to pay that, let alone room and board and all the other costs of attending the University of Rhode Island for a very high percentage of our Rhode Island students. About a third of our students, and they're mostly from Rhode Island, are Pell Grant recipients, which means that they're coming with incomes of $50,000 or less. Mm-hmm. So URI tuition, even though it's a great value, is a significant hit to those family incomes.
Understand. But here's the thing, getting right to, well, you know what, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the preparation that the university has for what is no doubt going to be a surge if this plan actually gets approved. And then other ways the state can make a commitment to this institution, RIC and CCRI, without this 2-year free thing. Stay with us.
I think it's a terrible idea. Look, college is overpriced. I have one child in college, one in high school, and one in middle school. Nobody understands this better than I do. College is overpriced all across the country, and we need to do something about that. the way to do that is not to start subsidizing it more, because that's just driving the costs up.
All right, that's an interesting theory. That's State Representative Brian Newberry, who talked about this program that the governor has offered before. Do you believe that subsidizing drives the costs up?
I don't think that's been an important factor for the University of Rhode Island. I think if you look at University of Rhode Island's financial history, the primary cost driver of tuition has been static or declining state support, and I think that's pretty much the national narrative across the country. There have been many studies that have substantiated this, that the primary driver of tuition increases in public higher education has been a trade-off of the historic, I think, social contract that always said higher education should be heavily subsidized by the state to benefit all people, and partially subsidized by the families. And what we've seen over the last 2 to 3 decades in the United States is reversal of those roles. The families now pay far more than the state does on a per student basis for the cost of an education.
Well, we've long talked about the state's contribution to URI. We're going to talk about that in the next segment because there's politics involved with this whole thing. Government funding is always about politics. But let's just say this thing passes and you're getting 2 years, kids are on spec, 60 credits through their sophomore year, on time, passing with a 2.0. Listen, there's some really terrific, very hard curriculum degrees at URI. There's also
Yes,
there's also a couple of walks in the park and a couple of cake parties that can get you through a 2.0. So I'm not that impressed by that, but I get it. And then your junior, senior year, as long as you stay on that kind of spec, you're getting that dough, or you're getting that tuition break. It doesn't mean dorms. It doesn't mean off-campus living. It doesn't mean any of those things. But here's a situation that I think is really interesting. The data shows that there will be a significant surge of Rhode Island kids that will be taking advantage of this whole thing. And let's not kid ourselves. While URI provides a heck of a quality of life for kids, it has been a comeback when it comes to dorm space, all that kind of thing. I mean, are you really ready for this? And are you going to be back here in this seat a year or two from now asking the audience for support for yet another unexpected referendum of funding, bonding to be able to build the place up again? I mean, that's a really important question.
That's a very, very important question, and it's a very fair question for Rhode Islanders to ask, honestly. So here's how we handle these things. As you know, we only ask for help from the public, with one exception in the last 20 years, I believe, around academic and research kinds of buildings that go fundamentally.
Engineering building,
pharmacy, biotechnology, ocean science and exploration. Those are the kinds of buildings that we seek state support for, because those provide a great economic return and are of great value to the state to have those kinds of facilities.
Case in point, you had an athletic referendum go down half a dozen years ago or so.
Yeah. And I want to note for the record that wasn't put on the ballot as a university priority. That got on the ballot by a separate process through the legislature. But we don't tend to ask for those kinds of things. We don't ask the state, with one exception a couple of decades ago, for help with regards to things like dormitories, dining halls, and all the rest of it. We do that ourselves. The vast majority of the investments we make in those are entirely funded by the institution.
Well, does that come from an endowment, or are you going to have to jack up tuition?
No, it's not paid for by tuition at all. Those kinds of facilities are paid for by room and board fees that the students pay who live on campus and use those facilities. Happily so, because the demand for space on campus, for on-campus housing, has been increasing dramatically at the University of Rhode Island.
Sure. So doesn't it? Well, look, I get the separation of church and state, tuition and then room and board, and this is a tuition program we're talking about, not a room and board program. But most people look at it as a package, because most of the kids are going there and living there, because that's part of the think big experience at URI. So it's like 6 to 1 half dozen of the other.
I agree with that.
If dorm expense goes up by a G note or 2 a year, that's an increase in going to URI.
That's absolutely right. We know our families look at the total, as well they should, because it's the total cost of education that a family has to find some way to cover beyond whatever financial aid is provided by the institutions or the feds or the state or anything. We know that. We're always very upfront with all of our students and applicants about what the cost of education is on and off campus. We'll give them estimates of off-campus living too, so that they can plan. You're absolutely correct. But I think it's fair to ask families to bear those costs in large measure, and they historically and traditionally have paid the room and board fees outside of financial aid, or with financial aid that was made available to them that was allowable to be spent in those purposes. What we're talking about here, though, is the fact that there's no taxpayer expectations to fund those kinds of facilities at the University of Rhode Island. With our new dining commons renovations we did, the Hope Dining Commons, the Fascitelli Wellness Center, the Hillside Dorm, that's all self-financed by the University of Rhode Island.
That's fair, and I guess people will have to make that judgment, and if there's 2 years of free tuition in the package, I guess whatever costs for dorm space at all will be mitigated. Before we get to the politics of this, and the politics are significant, I don't know where I am there, but here,
Yes, I think they are.
I don't expect you to really dig deep on this question, but I can't not ask it. What do you say to the parent like me, or the parents like me, and the tuition and the kids who have worked hard to pay this tuition outside of whatever financing they've been able to get, or the financing that they've taken out, who now say, wait a second, was I born the wrong, what? And what do you say to the kids who are graduating 2016, who very well could be in classes with the class of 2017, at least for a year, sharing the same classroom space? You pay nothing and I'm paying full boat. I know all, programs have a liftoff challenge, but that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I don't know how you start anything good, Dan, that provides a benefit that doesn't have some kind of transition period where people are going to be able to gain that benefit on the one hand and not have the opportunity to gain from that benefit on the other.
My indicator always
is,
I think when you have this kind of a dramatic transition, you might want to say, maybe it's not such a good idea. See, if the university was receiving its prorated amount of $30 million in a fiscal year of more tuition assistance, and you had a tuition freeze, or you had a reduction in tuition across the board, or something along that line, I would think that would be as beneficial. I don't think it would bother me or a lot of parents and kids out there who've been paying for a long time and paying now so much. If guess what, in a couple of years URI is $1,000 a year less. Okay, well, but free? Yikes. And so, you didn't create this plan. They called you, right, and said, hey, Doc, what do you think about this? And you were like, manna from heaven. You're like the kid in Animal House when the Playboy comes in at the end of the movie and says, "Thank you, God." I mean, right? This is a gift to you and the university in some ways, but you could take it in any way, shape, or form and make sense of it all. Correct?
And states have taken a variety of strategies on this part, in the sense that some states have done tuition pay downs. They said, "Here's an additional $30 million." I think the University of Wisconsin, the governor there, has, for example, just now proposed an additional 5% reduction in tuition, and that's going to be paid down by an increase in state support. That is a strategy that some states have used. Other states have used, we're going to give everybody 2 free years at a community college, and no help to go to a 4-year institution. That's what other states have done.
And by the way,
so there are a variety of solutions to this area.
All due respect to your fine institution, I'm a little bit more bullish on 2 years at CCRI, because you can talk about a K-14 type of formula and make some sense of it. Obviously, you can't give the first 2 years at URI because you got to make sure the kids are actually on track and doing their thing. I'm guessing you're the one who came up with junior, senior year.
Well, we were very strong proponents of that because we believe that what that does is incentivizes graduation, and it makes sure that the student has put a lot into the table on the table themselves. They have to come and succeed for 2 years. They have to bring resources to pay for those 2 years, either family or other kinds of financial aid, including financial aid that they get from the University of Rhode Island. Remember, our financial aid contributions to a lot of students are significant and substantial, and that's both need and merit, financial aid.
All right, when we come back, there's politics in this. Stay with us.
Mattiello's tweet storm went on to say, what is truly unsustainable and fiscally irresponsible is her plan to make us the only state in the nation to give away free taxpayer-funded college tuition. The governor's plan is to offer Rhode Island residents 2 years tuition free at public colleges, an incentive for high schoolers to stay in the Ocean State. Her communications director responding to Mattiello, telling Eyewitness News, the simple truth is that 75% of jobs coming to Rhode Island require a degree past high school, and less than 50% of Rhode Islanders have that. The governor won't rest until Rhode Islanders get those jobs. It won't be okay if those jobs go to people in other states.
All right, so we got a firestorm going on between the Speaker of the House, who needs a car tax plan like he needs water or air, and the governor is just running around the state thinking this is the best thing to put on her refrigerator for national recognition, 2 years free college tuition, because she'd be the first in the country to do so. Dr. Dooley was kind enough during the break to alert me, as we taped this program on Wednesday, that Governor Walker in Wisconsin just put $135 million more into his budget for his public institutions with a 5% tuition decrease, which is exactly what I think we ought to do if we have a commitment here. You have a tea leaf reading on the politics between the State House and the governor's office?
I don't. You know, I have a great deal
Why
of
would
respect.
you?
I have a great deal of respect
Thought I
and a
could
great
get you on that one.
relationship with both the Speaker and the governor, who, you know, I think they may disagree on this, but I don't believe that they have any disagreement on their fundamental values, which is to do the best thing possible for the people of the state. They may disagree on what the best thing for the people of the state may be at any moment, but I believe they're both sincerely motivated that way.
Is there a moment in time during this whole process, and nobody's pulling any wool over your eyes, and there's no grass growing under your feet, is there any time during this process in the last month or two when this came out from the governor where you felt, I'm a pawn in her political play to be the first in the country to put a plan like this out there, adding to her stock when it comes to national recognition?
Well, I would take issue with the phrase "first in the country." I don't think that's an accurate representation of the situation.
That's how she sells it.
There are several unique aspects to her program, including the emphasis, which is, I think, very, very sound public policy, very innovative, and may well be first in the country for the four-year institutions to focus it on the third and fourth years and incentivize graduation. I've said repeatedly, America has a college completion program and not a college access problem. We have a problem with graduation. We don't have a problem with enough kids getting in.
Do we know how many kids, well, I'll get you out of the politics. Last question on the semantics. Do we really have data on how many kids leave after sophomore year because they're broke?
We know that a significant number of students who leave our institutions, both at CCRI, Rhode Island College, and the University of Rhode Island, when asked in an exit interview, what's your primary motivation, will frequently say finances. And that can reflect a lot of things. It can mean the fact that they can't keep up anymore with working 2 or 3 jobs and trying to go to college full time. It may mean that the family finances have been drained. It may mean that they're a non-resident student that the family's decided that, well, you should come back home.
I asked you a
question. It can mean all of those things.
This question requires much longer an answer, and there's no doubt we can spend some more time on this. We'll follow the politics of this and we'll check back, but you support this plan.
I do support this plan. I think it's very sound public policy. I think it has the advantage of making higher education more affordable, and it incentivizes graduation.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Last word when we come back. Stay with us. It will be fascinating to see what kind of thundercloud we have between the Speaker and the Governor on this college-free tuition plan. Here's the thing, though. If it comes into this deal where the Governor loses the whole kit and caboodle, that would be a shame. She might have to give up on the first to do 2 years to get good subsidy back to the schools so that everyone can afford college education. More debate as it comes. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Good night.